I have two special people here, and we're going to talk about homelessness here in Cincinnati and how it affects families and, you know, people who are just have a heart for those who are homeless and even dealing with mental illness or even drug abuse. As Ohio Classic Woman, my platform is Homelessness and Family Advocacy. And basically what I would like to see done is that those who need help can get it, or at least know, you know, that there are those of us who care about their well-being. As a way of introduction, I would like to introduce to you the founder of Servant to the Least of These, Minister Larry Devereaux. And I also have here actually my sister, Shauna Frazier, and Shauna has a story to tell, you know, on how homelessness has affected her, which, by the way, also affects me because it concerns her son, my nephew. So, Mr. Devereaux, would you like to open up and tell us about Servant to the Least of These?
Yes, it'd be my pleasure. Service to the Least of These, we call it STLT. It was designed and founded, 18 months ago. 18 months past. Vision came from my bishop about the church being involved in a Jesus revolution. And so I sat there and listened to that vision come out, and about a week later, while I was at work, I was working on Saturday, and I was doing some work that was overtime because it was needed to be done, and just so happened I was doing some surveys, and I was walking a map downtown between 7th Street and 9th Street, between Central and Ray Street, which covers Garfield Place. And as I was down there, the very few times I've actually heard audible voice from God was down there. I believe I heard it 2 more times in my entire life. But the way I knew it was him is that when he began to speak, I felt his voice vibrate through me, like standing behind bass speakers. And they hit the bass. That's how I felt. So I heard his voice more than I felt his voice more than I heard it.
Yes.
And he told me, this is where your Jesus revolution starts, right here. And I walked through there, I know what we're talking about, and I walked through there, and I see all these homeless folks laying on them benches. And it was right in front of this big, huge church, right there on Elm Street in Garfield Place. Okay?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And those people were coming inside that Saturday morning for Bible study or something, had their priestly robes on or whatever. And right across the street was all these homeless folks. And I'm standing right there where I can view everybody. And he said, this is where your revolution starts. And so a week after that, I went to Sam's, bought some snacks and some juice and stuff like that, and packed up a little lunch, and I went down there and started giving it out. I was teaching a Bible study, and I mentioned it to the students that next Thursday, and that Friday they was texting me, asking me when I was coming down there, and that's kind of how I started. You know, so I've been looking after homeless folk, critically homeless, ever since then. So that's what I do. You know.
Okay. As you can see, you know, there is a heart for the people here in Cincinnati who are homeless, and it gets to be even more so a heart issue when someone is affected by it. So in this time that we are before you, what I would like to do is really turn this over to Minister Devereaux, where, you know, he may ask us some questions. We're going to see where this goes. He's going to, you know, get Shauna to share her story, and she'll delve more into that. And we're just going to see how what we talk about, how Minister Devereaux, you know, found his Jesus experiment, revolution.
Yep.
Found
Same
his
thing.
Jesus revolution, and how we hope that this time makes a difference for anyone who views, you know, this video today. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gwen. These are 2 special people in my life. We got history together. We go back a long way. Not only did we church together for many years, but Gwen here, I coached her son basketball
Yes.
for quite some time.
Yes.
One just like I told all of them, I'm coach for life. I never go away.
Right.
Okay, you never go away.
Right.
So that's what makes me, you know, this special. But the thing is, more special is how God has brought all of this stuff to full circle here, and brought us together, for one of the same causes. It's amazing how God, that's how sovereign He is. It's the kind of things that He does. Because you meet each other years back, and you never know how you're going to come together right now.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is the providence of God. This is the things that He does. And so it's amazing how all this came into effect, and we all have the same thing in common about homelessness.
Yes.
And so I'm very much aware of Shauna's situation with homelessness here, but I'm going to let her tell her story, because this is all about those who are affected by what goes on out here in these streets. And so Shauna, you go right ahead and talk. Okay? And I'll throw some stuff at you in a minute, but I want you to tell your story.
Okay. Well, let's see. I don't know really where to start, but my sister already mentioned my son, Julian. We lost him last year in October, and he was homeless for probably about 2 years. And as a mother, you don't know how and what to do with that, but the biggest driver for his homelessness was because of his mental illness. And so in his, probably some things were happening in his teenage years, late teenage years, but I didn't reckon, I thought it was just teenage stuff, him being rebellious or whatever, but hindsight is 20/20, so when I look back, I think it probably had something to do with his mental illness, but it really began to play out in his early to mid-20s, and there were a few things that happened that we believe kind of catapulted that situation where his mental illness began to present itself more. Yeah, because he and this is the thing that kind of blows my mind. He got shot twice. He got shot once when he was trying to break up a fight. He was with Ricky, with my nephew, and someone shot him. And then the first time, we don't know why, but the first time it happened was when someone tried to steal his wallet. He had stopped at the gas station on his way home, and someone tried to steal his wallet, and he ran after them to get it back. And they shot him. And so it was after those two incidents that didn't happen too far apart from each other that it seemed like things really started to go downhill for him. So after probably a period of time, he was still living, working, doing whatever he was doing. I have 2 grandsons, so he was still with this high school sweetheart. They were together. They had 2 kids. But one day he called me, and I was actually at a women's conference, but for some reason I had my phone and I answered the phone. And he told me that he was going to shoot himself. And I was like, what in the world? And my husband was close to wherever he was. He was staying in Lincoln Heights. My husband's job was somewhere close to that. And it was a Saturday, and he just happened to be at work. And so I called him, and then, of course, as a mother, I'm freaking out. And I'm like, go get Jay. And I told him everything that was going on. And they sat and they talked, and he actually started seeing someone at that time to try to get help. But we didn't realize how serious it was and what was really going on. So fast forward a few years, he decided that he didn't need help. And I think this is what a lot of people with mental illness do. They think they're fine. And he up and left Cincinnati and moved to New Orleans. And we didn't know. He called me on my birthday to tell me happy birthday. And then he told me I'm in New Orleans. But we find out later, as time goes on, you're piecing these things together. He's an adult. He's been out of my home at this point. But, we're piecing things together, and like, what is he doing in New Orleans? And so me and my sister, and we have another sister in Michigan, we just started trying to figure it out. How can we find him? How can we get him? He stayed with someone, a friend of mine's son, for a little bit, but then he was homeless down there. And so we actually were able to get him back home and get him, he went into a mental institution down there. We got him back home, and he seemed to be okay, because I think he was on medication for a little while because he was in an institution. And he stayed with us. And but then we got him set up with like a room. We rented a room. We thought he was okay. We thought he was on medicine and he was gonna be okay. We rented him a room. We told him we're gonna pay for it for this period of time, but you gotta start working. And my husband is like he's ex-military. He's like this. He's not Jay's dad, but he's like this. Men, you know, as a man, this is what we need to do with men, and so on and so forth, which was kind of, yeah. and you know, as a mom, I never would have. I would have been like, just let him. It's okay. But he's like, no, he needs to get out here. He needs to get on his 2 feet. He needs to do these things because we thought he was gonna be okay. And so as we got through that period of time, he lost the job. He lost the room. He became homeless. And because of some things that happened in our home, and at that time we had our three daughters were home too, we were like, we can help you as best we can, but you got to get help. Yeah. And so, and all three of us gave him opportunities, like if you agree to get help, like we'll go with you. I had already put in paperwork at work to be able to be off and go take him to his appointments and do all of these things. But there was always a reason. There was always an excuse. My sister that lives in Michigan, she's like, come live up here with me. Right. He told her, no, Amy, you go to church too much. Oh. And, so, and then, you know,
we could have stayed with me.
Yeah, we always
the same stipulation. Let's get help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I talked to everybody that I knew, like my friend, you know, Benita Spraggins, and I talked to her because I know she knows the system, and she was saying, you know, unless he's a danger to himself or someone else, they're not going to just hand over to you his guardianship. Like you can't just go and petition. There has to be a reason. Yes. One time he got in trouble, and I asked the police officer, like, is there something? I went to court. And I asked the police officer, is there something I can do? Because he had gotten in trouble. And they were like, well, you probably can't get, you can't make him go into a mental health institution. Right. You can't make him. Wow. So that is what I thought, but I found out after he passed away that there probably were some things I could have done. And I don't, as a matter of fact, a friend of mine is a police officer for the Cincinnati Police, and she has 2 family members who are, have struggled with mental illness. And she said, well, Shauna, I wish I would have known you were going through this because my brother was suffering with mental illness and homelessness, and I was able to do some things. Now, I'll tell you, honestly, at the time she told me, it was not soon after my son passed away, so we didn't go into details, but she said there probably were some things that I could have done. But to get to the homeless part, I think when Jay would go, Benita helped me get him in a couple programs, and he wouldn't stay because part of his illness was that he just didn't trust people. So he would think it was like this whole conspiracy thing that they were trying to do something against him, and so he wouldn't stay. And or there would be requirements like, okay, you can stay here this amount of time, but then you got to show that you're trying to find a job, and you got to show these things. And I think that's a good thing for people who can work. But for somebody like him who has some mental illness issues, he couldn't meet those things. Then when we did other research, it's like if you got to have some kind of something to be able to get in the system, and if you don't have that, then you don't get these different services. And so he was kind of just out there. He would leave. We would get him in a program, and he would leave. He wouldn't stay. And over the time, as we would try to talk to him about it, he would either get angry or belligerent or whatever, and it never worked out. So last year, I was actually at church, and let me back up. My in March of 2018, this year, last year, no, 17. March of 2017, I saw Jay right before my husband and I went on a trip, and then from March to September, I couldn't find him. And everybody was looking for him. I opened a missing person report with the police. I did all this stuff because we would keep him with a phone. We would get him stuff to eat, but It got to a point where he kept either selling the phones or getting rid of the phones because he didn't trust. He thought people was listening to him through the phones. And so I didn't have a way to get in contact with him. And people would see him, and I just thank God, because I was just praying like, God, I don't know where he is. And every time I would hear a story on the news about somebody being found or something, I was thinking it was him. And so a friend, Bonita, my same friend, she saw him. We would meet in Eaton Park to go. We were walking and running. We were going to do this half marathon, which we did. And so she saw him, and I was on my way to go meet her. And she said, you know, how close are you? And so I was like, oh, I'm almost there. And I told her to hold him until I got there. That was in September of 17. And I got there, I talked to him, and I could tell something wasn't right. I mean, and to this day, and I know you can reason out through my head, but I get upset because I feel like I didn't pick up on something not being right, where he literally had given up. I feel like, hindsight looking back, he literally had given up. Because he asked me, he said, Mom, what would you do if I wasn't here anymore? And I was like, what do you mean? And I said, Jay, what's going on? And he changed the subject and started talking about something else. And so we, I told him to meet me back. That was on a Saturday. We met back on Monday. I took him to get something to eat and went and got him another phone and all of this. And my daughter and I were going to try to get with him in that next week or two and just try to talk to him again. Matter of fact, I did it that day.
Okay.
I was trying to get him to be open to, there was another organization I heard about called Tender Mercies for people, they deal with people who have mental illness. So I was going to bring it back up to him again because he didn't want to hear that or listen to that. But we never connected. I ended up traveling for work, so on and so forth. And then in October, so I hadn't seen him from March to September. And then in October, I did the Queen Bee with my friends, and he called me that day. That was on, probably the 6th or 7th, something like that. And he said he had a dream about me, and he was asking me if I was okay. I'm like, are you okay? You know, and he said, I walked out to your house. I said, you did? Did you knock on the door? Because I didn't see you. And he said, no, I just want to make sure you was okay. And we talked for a little bit. And then we hung up. I had just finished the marathon, just finished it. I was on my way home. He tried to call me back, and I didn't answer. I said, I'll call him back. And I had to leave to go out of town for work. And when I got back that next week, Sunday, I was sitting in church, and the police were at my house. And they told my daughter that they found his body in the Ohio River.
Wow.
So I still carry the weight of why didn't I answer the phone, but I also realized that I'm not in control of outcomes. You know, that's the hardest thing. What you carry the weight of what else could I have done? Yeah. You know, especially just thinking about how hard life was for him. I mean, there were times we got him hotel rooms or different things, and there were times he came to our house, he came to Gwen's house, he went to eat, took a shower, changed clothes, and through all of that, you always think as a parent, like all of the information I was getting along the way was that I couldn't do anything. It was as if I had no rights to be able to say, he's not making good decisions for himself. How do I now step in and make a decision that's going to help him be able to, live with this illness, not be homeless, not have all of these things. And all the information I was getting was that there's nothing you can really do. And so part of me is like, well, maybe I should have looked further or something like that. But as a family member of someone experiencing homelessness, you really you don't know, especially when they're mentally ill. Right. So that was like in October. It's not even a year yet. October of last year that happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
thing is, it's something that touches all walks of life, and I see the effects of it every week. So, I'm down there by the will of God to bring hope to people, because outside of all the resources they got, nobody's offering hope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes a brother or sister can come past us and we can speak one word.
Yeah.
That might be the very thing they need to hear. It's going to cause them to go to the next phase, go to the next place, go to the next level. You know what I mean? So that's our main purpose for being down there. Bringing people hope in Jesus Christ, because in Him you really live.
Yeah.
He said, "I come that they may have life, and that more abundantly." So in Him is our life. And without Him, you just don't have life. You're not really living anyway. You're just existing. And I think that's the plight of many homeless folks out there. They just at a point where they just exist.
Yeah.
And like you say, they give up, and they don't really want to live, but they don't want to take their own life per se. But they're not living anymore. It's them gave up on life. And we come to give them hope.
Yeah.
But we consistent. We bring food, clothing, that kind of thing. Let them know we care about you. But what we really have to offer you, we can't go buy.
Yeah.
Okay. What you really need, you can't go buy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So
right.
that's our purpose. That's our purpose.
And I think people who do the things that you do and those things that happen like that, things we found out over time that was happening for him, even when we couldn't be there, when we couldn't find him, that's what kept him going for so long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's people like you and what you guys do and others. That's what kept him going for as long as he did.
It's amazing because, we see people out doing a lot of things, but for many folks, they do it for the sake of, their own personal gratification. You know what I mean? I gave somebody a sandwich today, you know what I mean?
Right.
I gave somebody a jacket today, and, movie for me. But no, to me, this is about serving humanity, period. Because you don't know we serve kids out there. We've had teenagers and preteens come up on Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, downtown, getting something to eat. Have nowhere to go to. This affects all kinds of people. Okay, and so I'm glad that Gwen got that platform, and there's going to be many more platforms.
Yes.
And that's what we have to do. We have to take advantage of
We
it.
have to do, right.
It's really, it's sad and it's tragic that you have to use this topic. But what else could you use? You know what I mean? This affects you that way, so you ought to be able to help get this message out.
And that's why I chose it. It wasn't the one that I wanted. Let me say that,
Right.
because it's very close. Because I was going to do something else like breast cancer awareness, I had in my mind, I'm going to do behind the mask, for women who need to know what self-esteem is. I was going to do that, but this wouldn't leave. And I knew it was because people think the homeless are throwaways, and they're not throwaways. And when I share how my nephew was homeless, then people look at me like, "But I know you and your sister. Why was your nephew homeless?" And it's like, not because we threw him away, but because we couldn't help him. We never threw him away.
That's right. That's right.
And it was tough because, like my sister, I had to go, what didn't I do?
Right.
So it was tough.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I missed things too. So if I can help someone else realize that if we can go through this, and I would never feel the intensity that my sister feels about it, but I feel it because Jay was my baby.
Yes.
Okay? And the last time I saw him was probably about 8 months prior to anything had happened to him. He just happened to stop by. He actually got angry with me because I wouldn't agree with something he was talking about. And he left, and then he came back and said, "I just need to go to sleep. Go to sleep, nephew." come in, lay on the floor, just go to sleep. You know, but even then, just again, trying to talk to him about doing something, like, Jay, aren't you tired? Let's do something. And, you know, he would change the subject.
Right.
You know, he didn't want to talk about
Right.
that.
Right.
So, you know, leave it alone. But I don't want people to think that everyone who ends up out there on their own homeless is because the family turned their back on them.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
there should be things that we should have to help, you know, our loved ones.
Exactly.
And we shouldn't be told no.
That's right.
You know, even if it's a temporary guardianship, to say, okay, you can have guardianship for 6 months to get him
Mhm.
back on his feet,
Mhm.
to help him.
Shouldn't be told no.
And then you restore that right for him to take
Right.
care of himself. That should have happened.
Right. Shouldn't be told no,
Right.
especially if you're a family member.
Right. Should not have
Should
been
not.
told no.
Wow. Wow. Well, we're gonna do everything we can to help get this message out here. Okay, because we need to be told somebody need to hear it.
Yes,
Okay, and somebody's dealing with it right now.
they are.
You know, so I'm glad that we're able to hook up. You know, I don't like the circumstances. Nobody does. You know, but this is what villages do. This is
Yes.
what family do. You know,
Yes.
we all should feel these
Mhm.
things. When somebody's pain, somebody hurt, everybody should feel it. And we used to be like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, when somebody loses a loved one, you know, the whole community used to feel it. You know what I mean? The whole community supports you. And so we have to be like that. You know, and it's a shame that some things like this forces us to be this way.
Right.
When it should be natural.
Yeah.
We should look out for each other like this. You know?
Mhm.
So we're going to talk more. So we're going to go through this again. Okay? We did it under 30 minutes.
Did we?
Yeah. I was watching that clock. I was trying not to watch it. I'm like, okay. I ain't going to look at it next time. But we can do this. Okay?
Man.
And now I'm still getting a chance to throw them. I'm going to throw these two questions in last.
Because I'm pretty sure we ain't going to remember what we said.
That's good. You don't want
That
to.
was good, Mr.
Just
Chairman.
flow.
Yeah, yeah.